Hey everyone, it's a sad day today, and you're probably pretty much well aware at this stage of the game about the three attacks, the terrorist attacks that happened in London that has now claimed the lives of 7 people and another 48 injured. And who knows if the numbers will increase going forward. But even with 7 killed and 48 injured, that's already with, like I said, This is the kind of stuff that we now are inundated with seemingly on a fairly regular basis. And the most important thing, well, I'm going to cover this, but then we got to get to the cause and effect correlation because, just reactions, right? Fear and sadness and anger, those things, the secondary aspects and the reactions, those are important and those are something that have to take place. But at some stage of the game, we have to start dealing with the causes of all this stuff. Anyways, this is from CBC News World, but as you know, it's being reported by every media outlet, established and alternative out there. They're all covering this today. Headline in this particular article out of CBC News, under the World section, Twisted and Cowardly Terrorists Condemned After London Attackers Kill 7 and Injure 48. Attackers hit pedestrians with van, stabbed others. Canadian reported to be directly impacted by the attacks. So even Canadians are involved. But like I say, whether you're, from Canada, the U.S., or wherever your place of origin, ultimately what it comes down to is people, innocent people, have been harmed, injured, and murdered for nothing but to cause fear among the population. And as retaliation, I suppose, in some aspects. But anyways, let me just read down into this article a little bit here. Heavily armed police fanned out across central London Sunday after what the UK Prime Minister called a brutal terrorist attack, when men using a van and knives killed 7 people and injured 48 others. Prime Minister Theresa May said that all 3 of the attackers who were shot and killed by police were all wearing what appeared to be explosive vests as they targeted pedestrians in Borough Market and the streets outside London Bridge train station Saturday night. But police have established that this clothing was fake and worn only to spread panic and fear, May said in a televised address after the 3rd such attack in the UK in less than 3 months. There was no immediate claim of responsibility for the latest attack. However, the group Islamic State in Iraq and Syria, ISIS, had sent out a call on instant messaging services, Telegram, early on Saturday, urging its followers to launch attacks with trucks, knives, and guns against crusaders during the Muslim holy month of Ramadan. So as we're seeing time and time again, it's like I say, we have to start dealing with the cause and effect of why this shit is happening. Holy fuck, this is the part that, and the mainstream media, the established media, they don't even want to touch it. They want to keep pretending that everything's fine because, like I said, if they did, they'd have to recognize that they are all at fault. The mirror would be held up and they'd have to recognize that they are every much as responsible, not me, sorry, but they are every much as responsible for this shit as the people that are carrying it out. And yes, I know that sounds like a bold statement, but in reality, that is the truth. All right? Ask yourself, if you're old enough that you've been around, you've been alive for 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 plus years, you know how many attacks were the people of London having to deal with prior to, let's say, 2001 after the Twin Towers, right? After 9/11. And even that, you can go back. I'm not even going to get into going back further into the Mujahideen and how the Americans armed them to fight the Russians back in the day over Afghanistan. There's a lot of cause and effect correlation with intervening and interventions in Middle Eastern countries to control and dominate the resources. But let's just go with after 9/11, right? Or the pretense of taking down Saddam, weapons of mass destruction. And we all know how fucking much that was complete bold-faced bullshit lies, right? Or Libya and Muammar Gaddafi, right? Hillary Clinton, Secretary of State. We came, we saw, we conquered, right? Yes, bombing the fuck and trying to control and dominate the resources in the Middle East is the cause. And the effect, as you see, like I said, how many terrorist attacks were there prior to that? they were so rare, right? And so far apart, so spread apart that there was no cause and effect correlation prior to all these interventions in the Middle East. But now you're seeing the rampant, not just in the U.S., but look at the countries that these people are attacking, right? UK, France, Germany, even Canada, U.S. Oh, what is it? All these countries that are fucking deciding that they're going to intervene and be interventionists into these countries in the Middle East. You don't hear them attacking many other countries that... How many times have you... Think about it, over in Europe. What's the one country in Europe that says, we don't want to deal with bullshit. When it comes to foreign affairs, we deal with our own country and our own country only. Switzerland. How many times you heard of terrorist attacks in Switzerland? Or people that know how, or countries that control their borders and make sure that when you are, if you're going to have central planning overlords that like to fucking have foreign conflicts and interventions to mess with people in another country, how many of those countries, right? If you do that stuff, how many of them are being wise enough to at least say, okay, we're fucking attacking Syria, we're bombing Iraq, we're fucking with the people of Libya. Maybe we shouldn't bring people from those countries to our own. Right? The ones that are smart enough to keep the borders closed, you're not hearing of the terrorist attacks, which only makes sense, which although I'm not making excuses for it, like I said, I'm not making an excuse for any of these central planning control freaks or sociopaths. But it only stands to reason that if you're bombing the shit of some country, right, your military, your government, then it's really probably a stupid idea to allow the people from that country to come to your own. Right? Kind of makes sense? We good so far? I know I'm totally on board with understanding the fact of, if I pick a fucking fight with my neighbor in the next community over, I'm not going to have his kids or his grandkids or his neighbor or his neighbors or his friends or his co-workers. I'm not going to invite them into my house because I'm probably going to think they might be pissed off at me for fucking with his neighbor, right? Common sense. That's something that's very lacking in the world that we live in today. But that's the truthful aspect of it, folks. And no, it's not to blame the people of London, although that's the thing. Those of you who did vote for any kind of initiative of foreign conflicts or foreign intervention or invading these countries or bombing the shit out of these places, if you did support that, then you too have a secondary part that you've played in that. You did play a role. It might not have been the primary source to come up with the idea or the concept in the first place, but if you support it to some degree, yes, you are very much responsible as well. Which is why people like myself, we keep trying to tell people like you all the time, those of you that support this stuff, well, every time you think it's a good idea to fuck with people in foreign countries, well then don't be shocked or surprised if you find out that they're going to want to do the same to you, right? The live and let live mentality, libertarian values and principles, that is the best thing going forward, not just for social and economic aspects or positions, but even when it comes to foreign affairs or conflicts. Live and let live is the best kind of scenario that any human being, that should be the very foundation and basis for us all to deal with each other. Whether it's your neighbor, whether it's the next community over, whether it's the next state or province, or another fucking country, or somewhere halfway around the world. Have a live, let live mentality. Give respect and respect. If you give respect, it'll be earned back. Now, there are exceptions to the rule, but what we're dealing with today, like I say, are people that want to have these fucking goddamn countries dictated, dominated, controlled, so that we can keep... Not we, but they can keep the system in place and established and keep things going along seamlessly without having too many waves rock the boat. Well, you can't do that. Sorry, you can't have your cake and eat it too and someone else bake it and think that happens just by a matter of snapping a finger. No. That's a kind of utopian thinking, to believe that you can mess with countries all around the world, try to control, and dictate. Look at how many times, whether it's U.S. government with help from a lot of the Western powers that have toppled regimes, had interventions in these foreign countries. You can't do that without at least understanding and realizing that there are going to be backlash. There's going to be blowback. Ron Paul, right? Libertarian from the U.S., ran for president actually 3 times back in the 80s, late 80s, and 2 times 2008, 2012. He and a lot of smart people like him even said it's all blowback, folks. It's all blowback. You know, we got to start looking in the mirror, although it's not us and it's not Ron Paul. These are people just trying to tell you, like, and trying to talk to you as if you're family, right? When you say we, it's kind of like as if we're all family. I get this, and it's weird with the nationalism bullshit. I totally understand that. Sometimes I'm totally against that. But hey, listen, the reality is when you live in a place that defines its borders, right? Just like if you live in a house, listen, whether you want to call it nationalism or property rights or respect of each individual's boundaries, what it all comes down to is if you respect my boundaries, you play by my rules when you're in my boundaries, and I'll play by your rules if I decide to go in your boundaries. It's all about respect and the live-let mentality. The world we live in today, no, it's all about central planners trying to dictate, control, manipulate the minds of the masses and take over and dominate the resource of the world. And they don't seemingly give a shit who has to get hurt, how many people die as a result. These are, like I say, these are sociopaths. They lack empathy. You or I that feel bad about this kind of stuff, that's lacking in their mentality and that's lacking in their psyche. Anyways, I won't make this video run on too long. I just wanted to already start down today. And I mean, actually, there's another article I wanted to cover. But the most important thing that this is about is, yeah, these people that carried out these attacks, yes. I mean, you know, if they blew themselves up, then, I mean, they're no longer here. But there are many others that will do the same thing what these guys did. But to think about it, in their mind, they believe that they're doing something right? Just like people in your countries, like your military, right? Or your police force. When you're indoctrinated in any mystical faith that's all about sacrificing the individual for the greater good, every conceptual practice, whether it's done through religion or the state, I know it's redundant speech, I repeat myself there, but every time an order or one of these things, these vicious terrorist attacks are carried out under the pretense of this person sacrificing himself for the greater good, whether it's for Allah, whether it's for the government, whether it's for any reason, for any pretense of a greater good, that is the very basis of what's wrong with the world today. The respect of the individual, you know, things that came out of the Enlightenment era. These are things that have to be brought back to the forefront of the human psychology, of the human psyche, of philosophy, and yes, even into the realm of politics. That's something that has to be brought back and presented and be the most important focus of our attention is gotta get back to basics when you're talking about how do you deal with people. Think about it in your own personal life, your neighbor, your friend, your coworker. If you did what these central planners did to those people, right, use preemptive force against them, would you not automatically expect that you're going to suffer some retaliation afterwards? Of course you would. And that happens in the political realm as far as governments and central planners goes too. So yes, hold these motherfucking terrorists to account. And I mean, they're probably already dead. They're hoping their way to their 72 virgins in the sky or whatever, right? Fuck them, they'll never get them. You know, they're dead, they're gone, whatever. But there are others that may very well take their place. And you know what? The best way to hold them to account is to tell your central planning overlords, these control freaks, these sociopaths that keep allowing these people to travel to your country. That's the thing with the European Union, right? The British people said, fuck this shit, right? And no, they're not racist. No, they're not xenophobes. No, they're not Islamophobes. Any of that shit. They were just like, hey, my central planning fuck said that even if you support them or you don't, they're bombing these countries. So my thing is, hey, stop bringing people from those countries here. The people of Brexit, the people that chose to remain, oh, because you want to travel Europe freely, hey, you should be able to do that. But your central planners are the ones that prevent you from doing so. Hold them to account. Don't get mad at the fucking people that are trying to protect themselves or protect you from the fucking stupid decisions of your central planners. Stop getting mad at the people that are just doing what they think is right. Even if you don't necessarily agree with what they're doing, they are just trying to protect themselves, their family, and their loved ones. Hold the people that are truly responsible to account. And that's the people that keep allowing all this shit to happen. There are many ways to prevent this, right? Just like when in past times in global or even somewhat smaller conflicts in wars, is if you are going to have and recognize that you're in a conflict with people in a particular geographical landmass, number one thing you should do, I'm not saying it's a good idea because I don't think you should be bombing fucking or fucking with people in foreign countries. Anyways, deal with your own shit. Deal with your own backyard. But if you're going to, of course, it only makes sense that you don't just allow a mass influx of people from those regions or those geographical landmasses or those countries to come to your own. Chances are you're probably going to be pissed off, probably going to retaliate against whether it's you, even if it's just the innocent public, because you're considered soft targets, so much easier. The central planners, the people that carry these or make these decisions and hand down the orders, these people that live in gated communities or in places that, they got lots of protection. It's the regular people, it's the average public. It's the average man, woman, and child that's going to have to suffer from the consequences and the decisions of the central planners. So hold them to account first and foremost. It's a Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.